also as the representative for Friends of the Grand Ronde Valley. I guess I can sort of empathize with the people here because Antelope first was people tried to take over this town who were religious zealots from out of the country, and now they have out of the country wind farm developers trying to take over their home with promises of riches to landowners, and unfortunately those riches go to a very limited number of people, and there seems to be a loss of the fact that there are other landowners who live in this area who are impacted absent all of these riches. My personal interest here has something to do with the fact that I was raised in Kinzua, Oregon, Wheeler County, and also I have relations in Wisconsin, and as I drove out here and saw the non-working wind farms, I was just really grateful that they're not dependent on this intermittent source of energy to heat them right now. But I provided written testimony on a variety of topics, but I wanted to talk a little bit about one issue that is of significant concern to Friends of the Grand Ronde Valley, and that is about wildlife and the mitigation of wildlife impacts, because we all know that the governor is very supportive of wind farms and has done everything he could to make it easy to site those. And our concern is that in the course of doing that, the law has been breached in regards to mitigation of impacts to wildlife. And I'll just take one example, and that is bats. And a few just pieces of information about bats. They're long-lived, about 30 years. They normally have one pup per year, so they're long-lived, they're very short on reproductive capacity. And so a dead bat represents a huge impact to the species. A few other things, a little brown bat can eat up to 1,000 mosquitoes in an hour. A colony of 150 big brown bats can protect local farmers from 33 million or more rootworms per year. And the value of bats to agriculture is average per year is roughly $3.7 billion. So they're really important to surrounding areas, surrounding farmers. Another thing is 40% of the American bat species are either in severe decline or they're already listed as endangered or threatened. As of 2011, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service was looking at listing 2 additional species as endangered, and they're looking at 5 others for possible protection due to the severe decline in their population. They're being killed at an unprecedented number at wind farms, and the cumulative impacts of the effects to these bats, in addition to other things that impact them, is that they can severely impact migratory patterns and survival of the species. And the bats that are projected to be killed at this wind farm are primarily ones that are migratory. So determining the overall impact is very difficult, other than we know that cumulative impacts are significant. What the applicant has to say about this is that most of the fatalities are going to be hoary bats and silver-haired bats, which are migratory species. The current estimated average annual bat fatalities in this Columbia region is 7,638 per year. Now, in general, the applicant has said, mortality levels are on the order of 1 or 2 bats per megawatt, and that won't be significant to the population. The amount of mitigation that the applicant has projected for impacts to bats is none. They suggest that they donate about a little over $1,000 to cash. This is for some impacts to water, which could be related to bats. However, I can tell you that bats are very dependent on riparian areas, and where this wind farm is being located, there are very few of those, and they are very critical to the survival of the species. They propose that what they'll do is they will count the number of bat bodies. So they'll do these surveys, and that if their surveys show that the bat bodies exceed 2.5 per megawatt. Now, this is a facility that is proposed to be able to generate 535 megawatts of energy. So we're talking 1,337 dead bodies, bat bodies, per year. Now, West is they're the folks that have done this analysis and determined that there really isn't going to be much impact. What you need to do is look at who uses West as a research group. And what you'll find is a listing of who's who with energy developers. It's Iberdrola, it's well, any big company that you can identify is going to be one of their clients. So I would propose to say that West is not an unbiased developer or an unbiased survey group, and that anything that they say in terms of conclusion should be analyzed by a third party who is not quote unquote owned by the wind farm developers. I'm nearly done here, but what we have here is a large company that is going to come in. They're going to collect their dollars, they're going to damage our wildlife and our resources of the state, and they're going to take their money and run. And Friends of the Grand Ronde Valley have a vested interest, and I think the people here do also, not necessarily in stopping any project. We realize that with the governor's involvement with wind farms, that's highly unlikely to occur. But what we do want to see is we want to see just compensation. So the damages that are caused by these developers are compensated. And one of the damages is impacting our wildlife and our wildlife habitat and following the law. And the law says that the Energy Facility Siting Council must apply the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife rules. And those rules are very specific. And they say that when a developer comes in and they damage habitat, either the quantity of habitat or the quality of habitat, either one or both of those, that they have to provide mitigation for that. Now, this developer has come in and they are saying that, I don't have the figures in front of me, but basically a 76,000 acre development with 230 some turbines is going to require them to protect a little over 600 acres of land for wildlife. Now, that is patently absurd. And one of the ways that they get away with this is they talk about permanent impacts. And so what it amounts to is they put up a turbine and they damage the area around where they put up the turbine. They call that temporary impacts, even though they're going to keep using those areas during the course of the life of that project for things like maintenance and repairs and things like that. So I hardly call those temporary impacts, but they call permanent impacts. For instance, if they're putting up a power pole, it's the base of the power pole. So you have a 1 foot square of impact for putting up a power pole. You have roughly a 60-foot circle of impact for putting up a wind tower, even though we all know that the rotors on those things cover roughly a 2-acre area in and of themselves. And that's not an impact to these bats, that you have these huge monstrosities with rotors that are killing bats and birds and displacing wildlife from habitat. And they say that for each of those, it's a 60 square foot area that is actually impacted. That is flatly against the law. It's flatly against the administrative rules. It's the law that they are supposed to compensate the people of the state for the damages to the habitat that they are causing. And this applicant doesn't even come close to meeting that standard. Thank you.
Ms. Gilbert, let me confirm your address, 2310 Adams Avenue, LaGrande.
And although I signed my written material by